This is why your parlays always lose. I'm going to show you guys exactly why so many people struggle to actually win certain parlays. It's not because of the teams you're choosing, but it's because of the math and the percentages. So let's go into the laptop and I'm going to break down exactly why you guys lose. And I'm going to show you exactly the percentages and the math behind it to make you understand why parlays are a bad bet. All right, so you guys are probably looking at this page wondering, what is this that you just pulled up? Well, this is a calculator that calculates the probability of an event occurring. So we're going to do an example of a three-team parlay, okay? Because a three-team parlay, most people think is safe. They think that's the safe mark for a parlay. If I do three teams, it's not going to be as bad. So, for example, let's take 3 minus 110 plays, okay? If you mash 3 minus 110 plays together on a parlay, it's plus 600. That's the implied probability, okay? Is plus 600, which gives you a 12% chance of that happening. Now, let's say you take those let's say they're player props. You take 3 player props at minus 110, put them together. Let's say the actual probability per event, per player prop, like when you actually dove into it, because this is usually on minus 110 lines, let's say it's like a 48% chance of that hitting. Usually a player prop at minus 110 is around that 48 to 50% range. That's really what it is. Okay, so if you take 3 plays that you put into a parlay, each of them had 48% chance of hitting. For all 3 of them to occur, the percent is 11%. You have an 11% chance with an implied probability of 12%. So you are negative 1% there. Constantly playing that 3-team parlay that looks like that, you're going to be negative 1% doing that. Yes, it might be flashy and plus 600, but guess what? Long term, it's a losing bet because you are playing a negative edge. So let's go ahead and flip the script here a little bit. And most people like to mash together, let's say they like to mash together minus 200s, maybe minus 300s, and put them all together, some heavy favorites, and put that 3 ways. And I'm going to show you guys why that is the same thing. It'll give you a negative edge, the same exact thing. Now, if you want to fast forward through all of this and you want to learn exactly the correct strategies that I've used year after year to produce gains of profit month after month, all you got to do is click the link in the description. Instead of sitting there wasting your time and wasting your money trying to figure it out on your own, just take it from somebody that's been there and has already did this. All you got to do is copy and paste and learn for yourself. So click the link in the description so you could join the winning team now. So now let's talk about heavy favorites. Okay, let's say 3 minus 300s, because people do this all the time. They'll take heavy favorites, they'll put those together in a 3-team parlay and think that's a better option. So if you take 3 minus 300s, put them together, it's about a plus 125, plus 130-ish is what you're going to get on that 3-team parlay at 3 minus 300s. Okay, implied probability on minus 300 is 75%. So if we put 75% probability, let's just say implied probability here, okay, not true probability, but implied probability, we mash all of those together, we get a 42% chance that we are going to hit that. Now, an implied probability on a plus 125, plus 120 is 45%. So now we're negative 2 or 3%, even with that heavy favorites, putting all those heavy favorites together. You're still negative percentage. So you will still be playing a negative edge long term, even worse than the 3 minus 110 plays put together. So this is where people struggle at because they think this is the safe net for parlays. And if you do 3 of them and you put them together and you put 3 heavy favorites together, that you have a better shot. Yes, you have a better shot than the 3 minus 110 plays put together, but you have a worse edge. So your edge is even worse. Now, I'm going to show you guys how you can actually make this work. There is a way to make this work, but it's very rare because you have to literally dig deep into research to be able to find this stuff. So to be able to actually make this work, to give yourself the best shot, probability right here, where I said implied probability here, just for example, these plays, all 3 of these together is, minus 300 plays per one. What you need to do to make this actually swing in your favor is you have to find the true probability of these plays. And you have to have a true probability of each play 85% and above. Because look what happens now when each of these have a true probability of 85% and above with the implied probability of 75%. Now that boosts your percentage of you actually hitting this to 61%. Okay, 61% on an implied probability of what? 40, 44%, 42%. So now you've gave yourself almost a 20-point edge in plus edge rather than negative edge. So this is the trick that you have to use to be able to actually be profitable if you're trying to do something this way and you're trying to do a 3-team parlay. You have to find the probability that is going to be drastically higher but have the same odds as the implied probability around that 70 to 75%, but have a true probability of 85% and above. That is where you find the sweet spot to actually do this, to where you can actually profit and you actually give yourself the best opportunity possible. Now, that is the only way to make this happen, and it has to come in the sector of player props, because for money line plays, totals, spreads, those you're not going to be able to find probabilities that are 85% and above. Player props are the only sector you're going to be able to find that at. So you have to be able to wedge a bunch of player props together, 3 player props together that have 85% and above to give yourself that plus edge rather than a negative edge. Because now, like I said, if you're trying to do spreads, totals, money lines, you're most likely going to find that category of the minus 110s. Putting 3 minus 110s together, you're negative edge by 1 to 2 points there. 1 to 2 percentage, you are negative. Then the minus 300 favorites with the implied probability of 75%, putting those 3 together, you're at a bigger disadvantage. So it's actually even worse mashing those heavy favorites together. The only way to make it work is the heavy favorites that have a higher true probability than the implied probability. That is where the sweet spot is. If you can find that sweet spot, that is where you can create an actual edge for yourself rather than giving yourself a negative edge and you continuously keep playing a negative edge. Okay, because I see this a lot, and especially on the YouTube channel when people come in and they have comments, and I see these comments all the time where they'll be like, you know, I found 3 minus 200 plays and I'm going to put them together in a parlay. And is that a good bet? Like, they ask me that in the comments. Well, you have to understand that you have to put that into a probability calculator to see if it is good. The true probability needs to line up, and you need to have a higher true probability than the implied probability to make that work. If you don't, then you're playing a negative edge, meaning long term you are going to lose. It's the same thing as in a casino. The longer you stay at the table, the longer you are going to start decreasing. You're going to just start decreasing because the edge is against you. So you're playing a negative edge long term. The longer you stay there, your edge goes down. If you ever see, like, a lot of people, blackjack pros, they'll say, you get in, you win, you get out. You don't get in and you stay, because when you stay, if you don't have an edge, you're slowly going down. But when you create yourself a plus edge, then you can sit and you can play that. Okay, if you sat down at a casino table and you actually had a plus edge, like people that count cards and have a plus edge, then the longer they stay there, the more money they're going to make. Same thing with sports betting. When you have an edge, the longer you play, the more money you're going to gradually increase, rather than if you have a negative edge, you know, you're going to decrease and go down. But that is exactly how you should avoid certain parlays, and the opposite end of the only way that you can actually make them work. And remember, every investment is a winning opportunity when you have an edge. I'm Frank with Linemaker Sports. I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, I'm out.